So, have you ever pulled a perfectly domed, incredibly fluffy cake out of the oven and just stared at it? Like wondering how a dense puddle of wet batter actually transformed into such an airy masterpiece? Look, it's super tempting to write baking off as just a little bit of kitchen magic, but honestly, there's absolutely zero magic involved here. What's actually happening in your mixing bowl and your oven is a highly precise, literally fascinating science of leavening. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to completely demystify the chemistry behind your absolute favorite baked goods. We are taking a systematic, step-by-step journey into the anatomy of a reaction. We're going to break down the complex chemical leaveners that totally dictate the volume, shape, and texture of everything from a super delicate cupcake to a really hearty cracker. Okay, so here's our game plan for today. First up, we'll look at the mechanics of rising. Then, we'll see why it's all about the base. Third, choosing the right acid. Fourth, we'll take a look inside baking powder. And finally, real-world recipe variables. Let's dive right in.
Section 1. The Mechanics of Rising. Physical Foundations.
Right, so before any chemical magic, well, scratch that, chemical science, can take place, we actually have to start with physical movement, physical actions. Like the whipping or mixing of batters, literally incorporate air into ingredients like egg whites or shortening. This mixing allows that introduced air to get trapped in the batter system, which provides your vital initial leavening action. It's essentially building this microscopic scaffolding that the chemical reactions are eventually going to fill in. And that brings us to a massively important concept here. Nucleation. So nucleation occurs right during the mixing stage. You see, batters actually can't create their own cells out of nowhere. They rely entirely on this physical mixing action to form these nucleation sites, basically tiny initial bubbles. Once those are formed, the bulk of the chemical leavening gases will naturally diffuse into these bubbles and expand them. So what does this all mean for us? It means the amount of nucleation you achieve during mixing directly dictates the final grain and texture of your product. If you want a beautifully fine texture with really thin cell walls, you absolutely need to create an abundance of these tiny nucleation sites right at the very start.
Section 2, it's all about the base. Alkaline actors.
Okay, to get that initial rise, we introduce our foundational alkaline actors. The heart of all chemical leavening is basically a simple equation. When you combine an alkaline material, so your bicarbonate base, with an acid salt, and you introduce some heat and moisture, a chemical neutralization occurs. Boom. This reaction produces a neutral salt, water, and crucially, carbon dioxide. That sudden release of carbon dioxide gas, that is exactly what fills our nucleation sites and produces the ultimate leavening action in a batter system. But, and this is a big but, not all bases are created equal. Let's contrast universally popular baking soda, or sodium bicarbonate, against ammonium bicarbonate. Now, sodium bicarbonate is super inexpensive, it's highly soluble, and it just needs water and heat to react. That makes it totally perfect for general baking. On the flip side, ammonium bicarbonate works through chemical decomposition. Add a little heat and it rapidly breaks down into carbon dioxide, ammonia, and water. It's an absolute game changer for low moisture goods like cookies and crackers, where those gases can easily escape. But seriously, be warned, if you try to use it in high moisture goods, that ammonia gas gets completely trapped. And yeah, it leaves a really unpleasant ammonia taste and odor behind. Nobody wants a cake that smells like cleaning supplies, right?
Section 3, choosing the right acid. Timing the rise.
So to get the timing just right without ruining the taste, bakers rely on something called the neutralization value, or NV for short. Because think about it, organic acids like buttermilk or citrus juices are wildly variable, so commercial baking uses uniform acid salts instead. The NV tells a baker exactly how much of a specific leavening acid is needed to completely neutralize a standard bicarbonate source. Getting this balance exactly right is absolutely critical to achieving uniform gas production, and more importantly, it prevents leaving behind residual unreacted ingredients that could totally throw off the flavor and the color of your cake. Now, as a baker, you are essentially a project manager for time. You might select a really fast-acting acid like monocalcium phosphate. That one releases 60 to 70% of its carbon dioxide during just the final 2 minutes of mixing, which quickly builds viscosity right on the bench. Conversely, maybe you need a slow-acting acid like sodium acid pyrophosphate. That one reacts super slowly in a cold batter, essentially saving all its leavening power for the intense heat of the oven. Or, you might go for glucono-delta-lactone for a very slow, steady release over time. It's all about picking the right tool for the job.
Section 4, inside baking powder. The prepackaged mix.
All right, let's break down the anatomy of a commercial baking powder. For a product to truly be classified as a baking powder, it strictly requires three distinct components. First, you've got your carbon dioxide source, which is your base. Second, you have your acid salt, the activator. But it's actually that third component, the inert filler or diluent, that makes the whole shebang work while it's just sitting there on your pantry shelf. Think of this diluent as a microscopic referee. It's usually made of something like cornstarch, and its most vital function is to act as a literal physical barrier. It physically coats each component, absorbing any free moisture in the container to keep the volatile bicarbonate base safely separated from the leavening acid. Without this little referee stepping in, the ingredients would just prematurely react right in the can the exact moment they were exposed to humidity, totally ruining your future bake. No way we want that. And depending on the exact acids formulated inside, baking powders have totally different reaction profiles. Fast-acting powders release gas pretty much immediately, which is typical for everyday household use. Slow-acting powders, they patiently wait for the oven. This is brilliant for commercial frozen doughs that might sit around for long periods. But the true star of the show here is double-acting baking powder. By mixing different reaction rates, it gives you a nice little rise during mixing at room temperature and then saves a massive expansion for when the product hits between 104 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit in the oven. It's basically a perfectly engineered two-stage lift. Section 5. Real-world recipe variables. Real-world interference. Bringing the science back to the baker's workbench really reveals the true vulnerability of our leaveners. Did you know chemical leaveners typically make up less than 5% of a bakery formula? That's a tiny footprint. But because they are such a microscopic percentage of the overall recipe, they are highly, highly susceptible to interference from literally everything else you're pouring into that bowl. Talk about punching above your weight. So, the crucial point we need to understand is that your everyday ingredients are actively altering the chemistry in real time. Look at sugar, for example. It's highly hygroscopic, meaning it constantly competes for available water. That can actually reduce your leavening rate by up to 10%. Or take milk solids. The calcium ions in there can severely retard the solution rate, completely slowing down the reaction. Fat? Well, fat relies on a working emulsification system to trap those tiny bubbles we worked so hard to create. Without it, the gas simply escapes. And even your flour. Depending on its natural acidity and moisture content, your flour can actually cause a premature reaction with the baking soda before you even start baking. Furthermore, if the base and the acid aren't perfectly balanced, despite all these wild cards, it causes a massive shift in the finished product's pH. And hey, pH isn't just about taste. To put it into perspective, a higher, more alkaline pH creates a darker crumb color with a finer texture. Think of a super rich dark chocolate cake. On the other hand, a lower, more acidic pH yields a lighter color, but actually gives the product a slightly longer shelf life. Your chemistry literally dictates your aesthetic and your expiration date. So we've covered the mechanics of mixing, the delicate balance of bases and acids, the hidden engineering packed inside baking powder, and of course, the total chemical chaos of the mixing bowl. Baking really is pure science, precision, and a bit of molecular choreography. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Armed with this newfound mastery of nucleation and chemical leavening, how will you change your mixing times or your ingredient choices the very next time you step into the kitchen? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and happy baking.